Hello, and thank you for joining this month's Safety Culture World webinar titled Recognition: Are You Leveraging the Most Powerful Catalyst for Culture Change? I'm Abby Fansler with Caterpillar Safety Services, and I will facilitate today's event. Before I introduce today's presenters, I have a couple of announcements. First of all, the phone lines are muted, but we do encourage you to submit questions and comments for our presenters. Please do so using the chat or Q&A sections of WebEx. We will use the final 10 to 15 minutes today for Q&A. Also, this event is being recorded. A link to the recording will be posted at safety.cat.com later today, along with a PDF version of the slide deck. You will receive a follow-up email with a link to the site and an invitation to complete a brief survey. And now I'm honored to introduce today's presenters. Andy Schneider is Caterpillar's Global Environmental Health and Safety Manager. In his 20-year career at Caterpillar, Andy has played an integral role in the Safety Process Improvement Initiative implemented throughout our facilities. Prior to his experience at Caterpillar, Inc., Andy dedicated 15 years to conducting and supervising inspections for OSHA. He is a certified safety professional and a certified industrial hygienist. And Doug Giesinger is a senior safety consultant with Caterpillar Safety Services. Before joining our team, Doug was a Caterpillar customer who used the Zero Incident Performance process and tools we'll discuss today to achieve operational excellence through safety culture improvement at a major Canadian utility. He is a Canadian registered safety professional with more than 20 years of safety-related work experience. And with that, Andy, let's get started.
Great. Thanks, Abby. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for attending this month's webinar. We're talking recognition today. We think it's a tremendously effective tool for changing behaviors and results, but our experience shows that it may not be well understood or implemented at a lot of locations. So today we're going to review what we know about recognition, why it's so critical, and how to do it well. We'll start with a discussion on the theory, but we'll also spend some time covering some of the lessons we've learned here at Caterpillar, some of which took us in the wrong direction, frankly, and others that served us well. Then Doug will review our experience with hundreds of external clients of our Zero Incident Performance process, and part of that process is a safety perception survey, and there are definitely lessons to learn about recognition from that. So let's start with a brief discussion on why we even bother with recognition. What does it accomplish? Well, first, it's simply the right thing to do. We've probably all had the experience of working hard on something like a school project or an assignment at work and submitting it with pride, only to have our teacher, a parent, or the boss just find mistakes and weaknesses. You've been through that, and isn't that a horrible feeling? It could have been so much better if they just started out with some recognition for the hard work before pointing out the faults. When they don't recognize that hard work, it actually demotivates us and reduces our effort the next time. We also use recognition to change behaviors. It helps reinforce desired behaviors, and negative recognition helps extinguish negative behaviors. And yes, there is such a thing as negative recognition. Most people call it discipline or punishment. We really don't think about discipline as a form of recognition, but it definitely is, and it's sure not the kind of recognition you want, and it's not our focus today, but it definitely influences the way people behave, just like positive recognition. Next, let's think about employees being asked to do something. Could be anything, even with their simple daily tasks. How do those employees know what's important to their boss? One way is certainly by what the boss recognizes or rewards. It's how they show their commitment to anything, right? This recognition process works for anything, not just safety. And think about change for a minute. I'm sure you've all had the experience of going through a change, and most of you have probably even been leaders of change at some point in your career. And if you haven't, just wait. Your day will come. But for those of you who have tried to lead change, it's uncomfortable, right? People really just like things to stay the way they are. They've gotten used to it. So when we impose change on them, it makes people uneasy at best and resistant or even defiant at worst. Now, at Caterpillar, we've adopted a global change model that has a heavy focus on recognition. That model says that most change can get really messy as people move from the current state to the desired state. And this change can be in anything, whether it's a change to production methods, standard work, or the safety rules. People resist change. Our model acknowledges that resistance and uses recognition as one tool for overcoming it. We call that messy state the delta state, and it happens during every change. When people are in that delta state, they're really uncomfortable. They're definitely questioning the change and asking what's in it for them. They may even be attempting to sabotage the change. Here's an example. Maybe you've had people deliberately damage new safety equipment and claim it was an accident just so they wouldn't have to use it. Does that sound familiar? One of the simplest and most effective tools for getting people through that delta state, that messy state, as quickly as possible is to realize that it is uncomfortable for them and provide some recognition for the people who are experiencing it. Something like, I know we're asking a lot of you to make this change. I realize it's difficult. It'll take some time to get used to. I just want you to know I've seen you trying hard, and I want to thank you for the effort. Keep up the good work. Think about how motivating those words would be to somebody going through a tough change. Now, if you're going through a change, wouldn't those words coming from your boss make you want to keep trying, maybe even get you to become an advocate for the change? That's what we're going for, turning resistors into advocates, and the best tool for that is recognition. That's why Caterpillar has such a strong emphasis on recognition. It's simple, it works, and it drives extra effort and support for everything we do. Okay, let's take a deeper look at Caterpillar's change model. Here's a diagram that depicts that model, and at the top of the diagram is that delta state I was just talking about. The people experiencing the delta state are called change targets. They're resistant to the change, and they need reinforcement in the form of recognition to get through it. And as safety leaders, you're usually in the position of a change sponsor or change agent. It's our job, but it's especially a leader's job to get people through the change and move them to the desired state. We need to understand the tools we use to get people through that delta state. At Caterpillar, those tools are communication, learning, and reinforcement, or recognition. It's called reinforcement on this chart, but what they're referring to is recognition. Our ability to use these tools will only make us more effective in our roles. Let's look at a real-world example. Let's say your facility is going to ask supervisors to start doing daily safety walks. What has to happen to make that work? Well, first, we have to communicate the expectation. Then we have to give them the training and the tools they need to do the safety walks. But no matter how well you do those things, without reinforcement or recognition, the initiative is likely to start out well and then fizzle out. Recognition is what sustains the gains. So two things where recognition helps that we've covered already. It turns resistors into advocates, and it also helps sustain your gains. It's almost like recognition is that magic bullet for safety improvement that everybody keeps looking for. Okay, let's switch gears now and cover some of the critical success factors for effective recognition. First, it's natural to think of recognition for outcomes. For example, winning a game of golf when you have the lower score, having the stock price of your company go up when profits set a new record, or an example for us as safety professionals, winning a jacket or a free dinner when you reach a safety milestone. These are all results-based recognition, but it's the daily efforts by the people on the shop floor and the behaviors that they use that get us to those results. Never forget to recognize those behaviors, ever. And where's that start? Well, first you have to identify the behaviors you want to recognize. When you're defining the desired state, whatever that might be, think about what you expect employees to do differently, or more or less, that will get you to that desired state. Those are the behaviors that you want to recognize. And then you have to, once you find out and define what those behaviors are, you have to recognize that to get them through the delta state and sustain the gain. And we're not saying you have to give a free dinner every time an employee follows a new safety rule. Remember, recognition can be as simple as thanks. Hey, I noticed you doing the right thing. Keep it up. You can do this in a tailgate meeting at the start of the shift, but it really means a lot when it's one-on-one between the boss and the employee. Also, we do tend to notice and recognize people who are faced with a really tough situation and get through it. But don't forget all the foot soldiers that consistently get the little things right that make that change sustainable. Helen Keller has a great quote for this sort of approach. She said, "I long to accomplish a great and noble task, but it is my chief duty to accomplish humble tasks as though they were great and noble. The world is moved along not only by the mighty shoves of its heroes, but also by the aggregate of the tiny pushes of each honest worker." So don't forget what Helen Keller calls these tiny pushes. They deserve recognition too. Those are the behaviors, the day-to-day actions that our employees take that move the change along. Remember too, you got to think about the people who can derail any change you're going to try to make. Poor performers need to be pulled along through the change the same as everybody else. In fact, you should make a more serious effort to recognize even small improvements in their behavior. It'll help reinforce their progress and keep them from returning to that poor performance that was experienced before. But you have to remember to distinguish between poor performers. Some are people who try and fail or just make mistakes, and others are engaged in active disobedience with the change. They both deserve recognition, but obviously of a much different kind. Finally, you have to make sure recognition is part of your daily routine. At first, you'll probably have to make this a conscious effort. You'll have to even go so far as to make a checklist or a tally sheet to make sure it gets done. But once it becomes part of your daily walk, part of that daily routine you have, it'll become a habit that won't need reminders. Okay, so that's some theory. We've made it through the theory, and now let's talk about our own practical experience here at Caterpillar. I have to say that Caterpillar hasn't always gotten safety recognition right. There were a lot of years where we were only recognizing results or only recognizing the heroes, some of those shortcomings I mentioned before. So this next part of the presentation will take a look at our history of safety recognition and some of the pitfalls and lessons that we learned that got us to where we are today. The first time we made any formal attempt to recognize safety was way back in 1959. Our chairman at the time was Louis Newmiller. He was a strong advocate for safety and created the first global award of any kind at Caterpillar called the Louis B. Newmiller Safety Award. So the first corporate award of any kind at Caterpillar was for safety. So we did get an early start at this, but then things dragged a bit, and I'll explain that as we go forward. This Louis B. Newmiller Safety Award recognized the facility with the best Injury Severity Index, or ISI, in the company. ISI was a safety metric that came from ANSI Z16.1. It was an ANSI standard, and basically ISI sets a point value for different kinds of injuries. More serious injuries get more points, and then the points are normalized for hours worked, the same as other injury rates. You have to remember that this is 1959. It's the days before OSHA existed, so we weren't measuring an OSHA recordable injury rate. It probably existed, but it was not standardized and had not become part of the daily metric for safety. So we picked ISI. We had to pick something, and ISI was it. One of the things about ISI, though, was that you needed at least 500,000 hours worked per year for it to be meaningful. At the time, most of our facilities were big enough to qualify, but this award completely excluded a few of our smaller facilities. Now, how's that for a nice engagement tool for them? We were already off on the wrong foot picking ISI as our metric. So now, before I go on, one thing you need to know about big corporations back in the 60s is that being nimble and adapting quickly to change just wasn't part of their DNA. So our Corporate Safety Award and the criteria for recognition, even with the shortcomings that we knew it had, remained in place for a long time. So the next few slides show that long transition to where we are today and some of the lessons we learned. So first, in 1966, we added a second and third place winner to pull in more facilities. Instead of just having one, at least we're recognizing 3 of our facilities. In 1982, we finally added awards for smaller facilities, although they still had to be big enough with well over 100 people. So we were still excluding a number of facilities, but we were getting better. We also added a separate award for parts distribution facilities as we built more and more parts depots around the world. And in 1994, we again expanded the program to include a Most Improved category because throughout the 40-year history of this award, we only had a few facilities win it for the simple reason that the best performing facilities stayed good year after year. It seemed like the award went back and forth between 2 or 3 facilities every year for a couple of decades. And every other facility complained that the winners had to be cooking the books. They must be doing something wrong or not counting some of their injuries. And so that demotivated them. So at least by adding a Most Improved category, other facilities that made good progress could now win even if they weren't the best in the whole company. So we're nibbling away at some of these weaknesses in the process and getting a little better every year, but this is taking a long time. Finally, it took us 40 years, but we realized that the ISI-based award really wasn't the best approach. Remember the critical success factors we talked about earlier. 2 things. Make sure you recognize both results and behaviors. These awards did not recognize behaviors at all, and make recognition part of your daily routine. These were the weaknesses that made us realize we had to change. This results-based award did nothing to recognize the individual efforts that made it possible, and being an annual award, that left 364 days of the year at each facility where there was little focus on recognition. We only recognized a handful of facilities at most each year, leaving a lot of facilities who worked hard and had great results, but they never got any recognition. It was producing the opposite effect of what we wanted. Let me explain. Facilities that got off to a bad start during the year knew they couldn't win, and sometimes they just stopped trying. So if they had a bad January, they had more injuries than they were expecting, they knew they would never have a chance to win the award, and for the next 11 months they quit even trying. Some facilities, like our foundry, were never able to compete with facilities that just did assembly. The result was they never felt like they were part of the process, and they didn't even try either. So these again, we're having the opposite effect of what we wanted the recognition to do. We're turning facilities off. Finally, OSHA was well established by now, and the rest of the world was starting to adopt the OSHA recordable injury rate for measuring their program, so our ISI metrics didn't even allow us to compare ourselves, Caterpillar's results, with other companies outside of Caterpillar. Okay. Before I go on, I need to explain that Caterpillar is a Six Sigma company, and every year we do thousands of Six Sigma projects. But every year we also do a couple strategic projects. These are called Strategic Improvement Projects, or SIPs. These projects are unique in a couple of ways. First, they're focused on a large-scale problem rather than an improvement to a little area or a finite process. Second, they're not expected to have an immediate return. It could take years for SIPs to have a return on the investment. In other words, they take a lot longer to show improvement than our typical Six Sigma project. Finally, one other difference about them is that all our SIPs always have one of our presidents or the chairman as the project sponsor. Most of our Six Sigma projects just have a local sponsor, but these SIPs have a very high-level executive as the sponsor of the project. So in 2003, we're getting back onto the slides here. In 2003, Caterpillar launched one of the executive-sponsored strategic improvement projects for safety. And that project triggered a lot of changes to our corporate recognition programs. One change was to start using the OSHA recordable injury frequency, we call it RIF at Caterpillar, as the measurement for performance awards. We also stopped recognizing only the best performers. At first, our first thought was that we had corporate targets for RIF, so let's provide what we called at the time a Facility of Distinction banner to all the facilities that hit that annual RIF target. And we did that for several years. Eventually, though, we dropped that Facility of Distinction award for a couple of reasons. First, we were aligning with OSHA's fear that recognizing results could drive injury reporting underground, and we definitely didn't want to do that. But on a much more practical level, we were acquiring a lot of companies around this time, And those companies came to us with a lot of very small facilities. We were adding dozens of very small facilities every year, and we started having more than 200 winners of this Facility of Distinction Award every year, and we just couldn't afford to continue to provide the award. The banners cost a lot of money. The annual markers cost money. So it was just a matter of practical reality in addition to that recognition that we didn't want to drive reporting underground. So in 1999, we added a project-based award to recognize activities in addition to results. But in 2003, back to 2003, in conjunction with this SIP project, we formalized that project-based award and reestablished a connection to the chairman of Caterpillar. We provided 4 levels of recognition. There was a single platinum award for the best project every year. We have a handful of gold awards, and everybody who submitted a project got either a silver or bronze award. Each project was scored by at least 3 people throughout the company, and then leadership, at the time it was the chairman, made the final selection of the platinum winner from the top 5 or 6 projects. In 2008, we added a similar award, a similar approach specifically for ergonomic projects. Now, this project-based award, remember, this is recognizing activities and behaviors at the facility, things that are really driving the change at that facility level. And this award got a lot of traction at Caterpillar. It's grown quickly. Last year, we had over 250 projects submitted for that recognition. We announced the winners in December, and then the facilities use local events to celebrate their award. So again, everybody gets an award by recognizing every submission with some level of recognition. We don't create winners and losers. Nobody's left out, and all the hard work and contributions get recognized. Let me give you a little background on this. Every year we get a number of projects that in our more mature facilities would be considered basic blocking or tackling. But in the facilities where the project submissions are coming from, these are considered, great advancements in their safety program. We don't want to demotivate those people by not providing some sort of recognition. So everybody gets either a silver or bronze award. Okay. An important change to our corporate-sponsored recognition was also to begin acknowledging that individual contributions are what lead to safety success. So to do this, we created a Safety Star Award and an Ergo Star Award. These are individual awards, and they consisted of a small pin and a certificate that were presented to those individuals for contributions they made that moved the safety program forward at their facility. We didn't try to specify what types of activities were needed to win this award. We left that up to the facility. If they thought an employee's efforts were worth recognizing, who were we to say no? We wanted it to fit with their local culture. If they thought it was important and worth recognizing, we said, fine, we'll give you the Safety Star or the Ergo Star. The other thing we did was we created an online submission process. So any employee could nominate another employee using that online submission. They just go onto their computer, type in the name and the reason for the recognition, and then we send out those pins and certificates. In fact, I did 10 of them this morning. The only thing we said that we would not recognize with the Safety Star or the Ergo Star was going a certain time without an accident. So we weren't allowing anybody to say, you went a year without having an injury, here's a Safety Star. Again, we didn't want to create any motive to hide injuries. So this award was really the first time at Caterpillar that we provided corporate recognition for individual contributions. Now, of course, some facilities were doing individual recognition all along, but we wanted to provide a more standardized form of recognition, and the star and the certificate and, a signature from, a corporate muckety-muck to make it more worthwhile for those facilities who wanted to use it. The other thing this award did was give the facility managers another way to demonstrate their commitment to safety. The pin and certificate, when we get the nomination, we send the pin and certificate to the facility leadership, not the individual winners. And we ask that the leaders present the award in a local all-employee meeting so the winner can be recognized in front of his or her peers. We also found that this award's a great engagement tool for the other employees, even the ones who don't get it. They see the people getting the recognition. They begin to recognize when their fellow employees are doing something special for safety, and at the same time it forces them to think about their own activities and how they can contribute. So this Safety Star and Ergo Star have become a great way to recognize individual contributions, and we do a few hundred of those every year throughout Caterpillar. Okay, I'm going to wrap up this part of the webinar by switching back to theory for a minute and by discussing the concept of recognition versus reward. Now this is important. One thing you might have noticed as I went through the previous slides is that none of the corporate recognition provided at Caterpillar includes any sort of monetary award. At first, the reasons for this probably weren't even considered. We just gave trophies or pins because that's the way things were done. But as we became more schooled in recognition, we made a conscious decision that we would not confuse recognition with reward. In fact, at Caterpillar, we've prohibited the use of any financial incentives for safety results. I'd be lying if I said OSHA's threats didn't have anything to do with that decision. But when you look at this slide and the next one, you'll realize that there are even better reasons to leave the financial rewards out of the equation. First, rewards are short-term. After the money is given to the winners, what's the incentive to continue to do the behaviors that get awarded? The money's in their pocket already. Why do they need to keep doing the behaviors that get recognized? Rewards are also less personal, and during recessions or industry downturns, they're often one of the first cuts made. It's a cost, right? So in a downturn, you cut costs, you look where you can cut costs, and if you're using financial awards for safety recognition, that can be one of those costs that you cut. Now, how does that demonstrate a company's commitment to safety? Don't you think employees will view safety as a flavor of the month if as soon as things start going bad, the safety recognition goes away? That's not the right way to handle safety recognition. Another thing, rewards by their very nature can't be done frequently enough to reinforce the right behaviors. Remember, recognition needs to be soon and positive. You have to do it right after the behavior that you recognize to reinforce that. You can't give an employee money every time they follow a safe job procedure or correct a safety issue. It just isn't feasible. Recognition, however, changes people between the ears. It's psychological and it's motivational. Rewards go into the wallet, but recognition goes into the heart. It changes the heart. Rewards, another thing about them, they also create winners and losers. More importantly, they create losers. And losers are disgruntled, angry employees who at best won't support your safety efforts and at worst can actually sabotage your programs. So finally, there is a place for rewards. Why do you use rewards? It really doesn't have anything to do with safety. You use rewards to attract employees to your company, but recognition to keep them there. In fact, some studies have found that the number one factor in employee resignations is the lack of recognition from their bosses or the company. And this goes for anything, not just safety. So anytime you want to retain employees, recognition is a key part of that process. So why would you spend time and resources bringing people on board, developing them, getting them successful in their jobs, only to have them turn around and quit because they didn't feel like their work was getting the recognition they deserved? So it's clear that recognition and rewards are very different. And I'll close by saying you need to understand those differences and use each one the right way. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Doug. Doug's going to review Caterpillar's safety services experience with recognition, some of the survey results that they get through their external clients, and talk about what that means to him. Go ahead, Doug.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, Caterpillar uses a statistically validated safety culture assessment tool called a safety perception survey to measure the attitudes and ideas and beliefs that make up the culture and therefore impact safety performance. And by identifying areas of strengths and opportunity, the survey results provide a baseline for improvement. Looking at the slide that you see right now, you can see that the survey asks a series of questions covering 20 categories that impact safety performance, and recognition for performance is one of them. On the next slide, you'll see that the specific survey questions are asked to determine the level of satisfaction or the perception of recognition for performance. And some of those questions are safe workers picked to train new employees? Is promotion to higher level jobs dependent upon good safety performance? Can first-line supervisors recognize employees for good safety performance? Is safe work behavior recognized by your organization? And is safe work behavior recognized by supervisors? So again, those are the questions in the survey that deal with recognition for performance. On the next slide, we're going to have a look at how the safety survey element performs globally. And what we're looking at here is the global database results for the Safety Perception Survey element recognition for performance. It's a measure of positive performance for work or behaviors that are done well. And as you can see by the score for the category, that it's somewhat of a low performer based on the legend you see below the graphic, where red needs immediate attention, where you have less than 75% of your respondents responding positively. Yellow indicates that you have between 75 and 89% of the people responding positively, and then green in the bottom being a strong performance, and of those surveys, 90% or more would have responded positively, so that you see recognition for performance only comes in globally at 59.3, which we consider to be low. And it's not surprising that recognition for performance tends to be up in the top categories of the low performers. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Abby to give you an idea of one of the resources that can be used from Caterpillar to help improve your safety culture and your recognition for performance. Abby?
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, Caterpillar has found that there are really 5 tenets to effective recognition, that it be timely, that it be relevant to what's happening, that it be sincere, that it be confirmed, meaning that you get a confirmation that the person has received it well, and that it come frequently. So we have this tool, this training program, Recognize It, that we use in our customer organizations to help them teach or to reinforce the 5 attributes of effective recognition. It's particularly beneficial for supervisors and managers as they play a critical role in influencing the organization's safety culture. So if you are interested in learning more about this program, Recognize It, please send me a chat here in the WebEx, and I will follow up with you later today and provide you whatever you're looking for. But you can see some of the details there, the 10-minute video DVD, and it comes with a facilitator guide so that your trainers can deliver that, and as well as a PowerPoint presentation and handouts. So at this point now, we do, I believe, have at least one question here. Feel free as we go through here to continue to submit any questions you may have for Andy or for Doug in the chat area of WebEx to me. And I'll go ahead and read off the one question that we have at this point. You've presented Caterpillar's corporate system for recognition. Andy, how do individual facilities manage recognition at their level?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I may not have made that as clear as I should have during my presentation. What we were talking about in my presentation was the corporate recognition systems that we created at Caterpillar. We also expect every facility to have their own individual recognition systems that are appropriate for their facility. Different cultures like to handle recognition differently. We want to acknowledge that, so facilities should have their own approaches for recognition too. And we also ask them to recognize milestones as well as the individual behaviors. I'll give you a specific example. One of our vice presidents, and I think others are starting to do this now too, out in our facilities we have metrics boards, and they measure our performance on a lot of different metrics, whether it's safety, quality, velocity, whatever it may be. But this vice president, whenever she went by one of those metric boards and saw good safety performance, she'd handwrite on there, "Great work, keep up the good job," and she'd recognize that. And that coming from a vice president, seeing that on your very own board for your department or your work area, that means a lot. And that really hit home with a lot of our people. Other ways that we provide recognition at the facility level, that individual one-on-one recognition that I said really helps sustain the gains, that has to be done at the facility level. The safety stars and the ergo stars, those are great. Frankly, they come probably a week after the behavior or the activity that generated them. You have to do it sooner than that. They're a good tool to use, and they're great in all employee meetings when you want to reinforce safety, but you have to do, recognition, we say, has to be soon, sincere, and specific. And that individual recognition has to be done at the facility level. It can't be done at the corporate level, because if it's done, if you're waiting on corporate to do it, it will not be soon. It probably won't be sincere, and it suffers in the specific department as well. So we definitely count on every facility we have to develop, create within their own culture a recognition program that's right for them.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Another question came through. How often do you administer the safety perception survey? And I think I might actually take a stab at this one myself. I think that you probably mean how often would an individual organization or facility administer the survey? And the answer to that depends a little bit upon the improvement efforts that you make coming out of your first survey. So the survey purpose is to give you a baseline for improvement, is to kind of tell you where you are now so that you can focus your improvement efforts appropriately. So then you would have some activities following that to try to make those improvements. And typically when we work with customer organizations on this, we will run continuous improvement teams and other workshops to help them along that journey to zero over the course of about a year and a half to 2 years before we take a second safety perception survey, which will then provide that measured benchmark to compare with the original to tell you how far you've come during that time. So the kind of short answer is about every 2 years is what we would typically recommend.
If I can, let me add something to that. These surveys are what I call intelligence from the front lines. The true culture in your facility is what happens when nobody's looking, when the boss isn't around. So these surveys uncover that true reality, the true culture in the facility. Now, so you need to have that intelligence from the front lines, but in between, remember Abby said we're looking at about every 2 years for doing this survey. In between, we want you to continue to get that intelligence from the front lines, and we use a couple of tools for that. One is the continuous improvement events that Abby talked about, but we also have an interview process that we can use in between surveys to continue to get that information about what's happening when the boss isn't around. So every 2 years or so on the survey, but don't forget to get information about your culture in between those survey intervals.
And Doug, did you want to, please, Doug, go ahead and weigh in on that.
Sure. Speaking of safety perception surveys in general, there's a movement afoot, at least in Western Canada now, to allow companies to utilize perception surveys as a method of maintaining a certificate of recognition. This is up and coming. It's been thought about for a while, and what's happening is that governments are realizing that in order to drive numbers lower than traditional safety processes have been able to take them, companies need to look at culture. They need to change culture. And one of the best ways to start that change is a safety perception survey. Again, my experience with safety perception surveys with a large utility in Western Canada has been that after the initial survey, like has been mentioned already, the results that you get from that are the results of a large cross-section of your company, and the resulting changes that you can make will really determine when you need to redo your survey. My experience has been that once the initial survey has been done, once you strike up a few continuous improvement teams and start to change the things that you need to change, your poorer performers within that survey, then it's about a 2-year wait time until you want to do another full-blown safety perception survey, and then take it from there, because the incremental changes that you're going to make with a safety perception survey, or the actions that you take from a safety perception survey, are going to be that. They're going to be incremental. There's probably not a solution that's going to be implemented that's going to solve world hunger, but over a period of years, doing perception survey after perception survey, you will find that your numbers start to drop lower than your traditional efforts in safety programs have taken them.
Okay, and the next question here, and I can let you guys decide who to take this, but is recognition tracked in any way? Do you keep up with who's being recognized and who's doing the recognizing?
I can chime in on that one. What I have experienced in the past is that recognition has been part of an accountability or a responsibility model that's been adopted by many companies, and it's being taught through Caterpillar Safety Services, where your responsibilities and accountabilities have 4 specific elements to them, one being defining the accountabilities, training the people that need to understand what their accountabilities and responsibilities for, a measurement system for quantity and quality, and 4th is the recognition, to ensure that you keep up with the recognition for those positive behaviors that you want repeated. There are models that you can use to help you decide what you want to recognize and give you some power to ensure that you're recognizing people for at least the critical tasks that they're doing right, whether they're doing safely. The measurement part can come in 2 forms. One, I've seen a measurement where it's being done on a quantity level, and there's a measurement that you can use for quality too, and that can be as simple as having a responsibility or accountability for someone to ask some open-ended questions of the people that report to them about their recognition efforts. So you can measure it. You can quantify it, and you can qualify it. And those are things that you can use for leading indicator metrics, the things that you're going to do and to ensure a safe workplace.
Okay, the next question is, can workers on the line recognize coworkers that is acknowledged by upper management?
Yeah, that's exactly what our Safety Star and Ergo Star awards are for. Workers on the line do have access to computers, and they can go into our website and submit a nomination for one of their coworkers for this recognition. And the way we pull in their bosses into the process is, like I said, we send the pin and the certificate to the leadership at the facility. So their bosses have to get involved in presenting that award to the employees. So definitely the workers on the line, in fact, are most often the submitters for those Safety Star awards, and their bosses then are the people who provide that recognition to the employee.
My experience has been that one of the most, and Andy's, I'm sure yours has been too, is one of the most powerful forms of recognition come from peers.
Exactly.
Okay, the next question. Do your managers and other staff have safety goals set each year? So I'm assuming performance goals and measurements, and then does it affect any bonuses?
At Caterpillar, we have prohibited the use of safety results for any kind of financial incentive, whether it's profit sharing, gain sharing, what we call our short-term incentive plan. We've pulled all of those To be honest, there's still 2 facilities that are using it, but they're going to stop this year. So no, we do not allow results-based metrics to be used for financial awards.
Doug, do you have anything to add?
I do.
Okay.
One of my experience has been that when you start looking at financial incentive, if you will, for recognition and for efforts, that the only way it works is not necessarily a monetary reward, but when you have specific defined accountabilities that are identified for every level within the organization for safety activities, you then monitor those for quality and quantity, and you make them part of performance appraisals. What we've experienced is that it makes it much easier for upper management and middle-level managers and even frontline supervisors to be able to comment and to recognize performance as far as safety activities are concerned when they have hard numbers that they can talk about. So it makes it much easier that way, and it then will make up part of the performance appraisal system within your company. So if part of your performance appraisal deals with safety, underneath that you have what safety activities you've been involved in, how you've done, the quality, and how many that you have that you've accomplished. So it does work as a financial incentive in the way that it should be part of the performance appraisal that you have in order to advance.
Okay, and the next question for Andy is, do the nominations for the Safety Star and Ergo Star go through a filter with the facility leadership first?
Yes. The submission form has a line on it that says, is your facility manager aware of this recognition, and does he or she approve? So absolutely.
Okay. And let me just make sure. I believe those are all the questions that came through, but I want to scroll through and make sure we didn't miss anybody. For those of you who have been asking about copies of the presentation, yes, we will have a PDF version of the slides available on our website shortly. You will, as participants, automatically receive a follow-up email after this event once we have everything loaded to the website, which will link you there to the website where you can view a recording of this session as well as download that PDF version of the slide deck. And certainly all of those of you who have expressed interest in our Recognize It program, we will follow up with you directly as well. So at this point, I want to thank everyone for participating today. Thank you, Andy and Doug, for your presentation. I'd like to let everybody know that our next webinar event is on May 21st, and that topic will be 3 truths about accountability. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us today, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.